A very good morning to one and all. Hello.
Hello, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yeah, please. A very good morning to one and all. I'm Dr. K. Vijay Bhaskar, Assistant Professor in English, Department of Humanities, Hindu College of Pharmacy, Guntur. As a convener of today's program, it gives me an immense pleasure to greet you all here. A warm welcome to one and all. I extend my hearty welcome to today's speaker, Mr. Radha Sri Krishna Maganti. He's a business consultant, pharmaceutical projects, CDMO and generics, Hyderabad. I welcome you, sir. Sir, Hindu College of Pharmacy, just I want to give a brief introduction regarding our college. Hindu College of Pharmacy was established in 1999, located in the heart of Guntur, with the fervent desire to train the students in a better builders for the nation, to inculcate skills of leadership in all aspects of life. The institution has grown substantially with 5 specialization in pharmacy, 6 years PharmD course we have, and post-baccalaureate. Hindu College of Pharmacy was recognized as a research center in 3 departments. And this institution has a potential, dedicated, highly qualified and experienced senior faculty members with the zeal to encourage research activities among students. We have highly sophisticated laboratories, spacious classrooms, digital library, and computer lab. So let us start today's session with lighting of lamp.
Kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampada shubham kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampada shatru buddhi vinashaya deepajyotirnamostute deepajyotirnamostute shubham kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampada Shubham Kurutvam Kalyanam Arogyam Dhanasampada.
Okay. The main objective of this webinar is to know the significance of communication skills in pharmaceutical industry. That is the topic. So as we all know that pharmacy education is traditionally been industry and product oriented. In contrast to the situation, a graduate pharmacist prefers placements in the pharmaceutical industry. Similarly, a graduate pharmacist needs to enhance both verbal and written communication. Good verbal and written communication skills are essential in order to deliver and understand information quickly and accurately. So, the speaker will focus the placements as well as communication also. Now I request an able administrator, social activist, leading advocate in Guntur city, our chairman, Sir Sri Chupud Rangaraj Garu, to address the gathering. Over to Chairman, sir.
Sir, maybe sir is not there, sir.
Not there. Okay. Yeah, now I request young and dynamic and driving force of our college, our principal, sir, Dr. R. Govindarajan Garu, to address the gathering. Over to principal, sir.
So, all are good morning, and behalf of Hindu College of Pharmacy, a warm welcome, one and all, for this August gathering for the webinar on communication skills for related to the industrial aspects. So, in behalf of management, Sri Ju Rangaraj Garu, Chairman, and Secretary and Correspondent Dr. Masno Garu, and all faculty members and students, we warm welcome. So this present generations, the need some lack of soft skills. The soft skill to overcome, we need to present in the way of approach, by way of mannerisms. We cannot be learn from others. We have to practice from others. So we have good in knowledge, good in skills, but we are lacking in communication skills. So this type of seminars, which enrich your knowledge to reach your destinations, whatever you like. So this is what you learn from this webinar is lifelong. It is useful for your approach or way of contact, and that will reach in high like sky. So I really congratulate Dr. Vijay Bhaskar. He is a Department of Humanities head of the department. He is arranging wonderful guest lectures, and also thanks today speaker to deliver on a webinar. So I really thank you, sir. You accept our invitation. Once again, thank you on behalf of our management, and also congratulate the Department of Humanities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, Principal sir. Now, I request the intellectual, charming and cheerful personality of our college, our Vice Principal, Madam Dr. A. Sunita Garu, to address the gathering. Over to Sunita, Madam.
A fine and pleasant morning, one and all. I am extremely happy to be with this August gathering on the occasion of online webinar on the significance of communication skills in pharmaceutical industry being organized by Department of Humanities. Developing communication skills can help many aspects of your life, from your professional career to social gatherings. In today's hectic world, we rely heavily on sharing information, resulting in greater emphasis being placed on having good communication skills. Good verbal and written communication skills are highly essential in order to deliver and understand information quickly and accurately. Being able to communicate effectively is a vital life skill and should not be overlooked. So, communication skills are needed to speak appropriately with a wide variety of people while maintaining good eye contact, demonstrate a varied vocabulary, and tailor your language to your audience. Listen effectively, present your ideas appropriately, write clearly and concisely, and work well in a group. So this webinar will helpful to improve your language skills in English. I compliment Dr. Vijay Bhaskar, convener of this program, for giving me this opportunity. I extend my genial welcome to today's speaker who have accepted our invitation to address the gathering. A warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you, one and all, for your patience listening and for your active participation. Thank you. Over to Dr. Vijay Bhaskar.
Thank you very much, Madam, for a brief analysis of the presentation, that is communication skills, and I thank you very much. So now the time to introduce the speaker, Mr. M. Radha Sri Krishna. Now, the speaker introduction will give computer assistant professor in computer science department of humanities, Madam Josna Madam will introduce the speaker. Over to Josna Madam.
Hello, sir. Just a minute, sir.
Madam, the వినపట్లేదు శ్రీధర్.
Yeah, just a minute, sir. Sir, madam ఇంకా అన్మ్యూట్ చేసుకోలేదు. Yeah, madam. Josna madam.
Sir.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, very good morning to all. This is Josna from computers from the Department of Humanities. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to introduce today's eminent speaker, Dr. M. Radha Sri Krishna, M.Pharm MBA. Is a result-oriented business development and project management operations professional having 18 years of experience in pharma industry. He has rich expertise in leading the development of robust, stable, and effective formulations API development projects. His domain expertise is formulation followed by API intermediates for regulatory markets from development to commercialization, pre-sales, RFQ, RFP management, business evaluation phase. He worked in various multinational companies like Dr. Reddy's Laboratories Limited, Cadila Healthcare Limited, Biological Evans Limited, Ranbaxy Laboratories. In addition to academic qualification, he has various certifications like General Management Program from Flame Institute of Management, Pune in 2014, PMI Certification Training Program from PMI in 2009 and 2011, member since 2009, PMI Certificate Project Manager, Six Sigma from ASQ in 2011. Thank you, sir. Over to program convener.
Yeah, thank you very much, madam, for introducing today's webinar speaker, Mr. Radha Sri Krishna, M.Pharm MBA. Now, I request today's speaker, sir, we have given to share the screen, please. Deliver your lecture, sir, please.
Request the program IT convener to just enable the screen sharing.
Sir, enabled.
Okay. Is the screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Admin? Yeah, that's good to know.
Sir, please disable that participant annotation, sir.
Just give me a moment, sir.
Yeah.
Am I audible to all?
Yeah, yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
I think it's better visible to all the participants on the line.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. And this is Radha Sri Krishna. Currently, I'm the co-founder of Stressa Life Sciences Private Limited in Hyderabad, based out of Genome Valley. And thanks to the management of Hindu College for providing me the opportunity to talk to the students through webinar system today. And that itself speaks about the importance of communication in today's world. And I also thank the principal sir and vice principal madam and Dr. Vijay Bhaskar Garu, Department of Humanities head, for enabling this session along a direct participation on interaction with the students. And this program is scheduled roughly about 40 to 45 minutes, and maybe a couple of minutes we'll spend on question answer sessions. And if you look at the title of the today's webinar topic is significance of communication skills in pharmaceutical industry. It is easier said than done that what is communicated is what is understood. What is understood is what is operational or put into action. So, as the saying goes, each one of us when we are born, basically we look at way of non-verbal communication. That's how we all started our communication channels while interacting with the society and the environment, immediate environment, that's the family around. Then we are grown up and we go to schools and interact with various teachers and also the fellow students. Then graduate yourself into a graduation college and etc., wherein we have a wide arena of contacts established through our friends, your college mates, or the academic arena before we step into the industry. Since we were Hindu College of Pharmacy is pioneered into the education of pharmaceutical sciences, imparting education to the students. So our relevance with respect to communication skills in pharmaceutical industry is a topic that we would be more dwelling deep onto it. Okay, and these questions, of course, you can have the questions in a chat mode, or ask these questions towards end of today's presentation. But nevertheless, I would request admin to take note of the questions via chat. And of course, they could be. I saw a lot of participants, more than 100 on the line. It itself talks about the team spirit in attending this seminar. Though everybody is physically separated, but they are logging in from their respective places. During COVID times, you have seen that how important has been the communication, because there is no physical interaction between either you're an employee or you're an academic student or a professor, where everybody is operating through their own base of communication through IT-enabled systems. Like today's seminar is all about a webinar, what we call it. Now it is hosted online, and I am thankful to the IT department for enabling this. Of course, there's a lot of work that has gone in enabling IT systems, because we are living in an arena of IT-enabled gadgets, whatever we have it. So not just the communication aspect of it, how it is presented via a gadget system is also an important thing that we all come to know today. This is the live example of being a webinar where it is already a demonstration of that factor. So let's move on to the slide, first slide of it, just to give a brief, because to know about the communication skills, the most ignored aspect in most of our college education or kind of thing is that how do you communicate yourself, about yourself, to the immediate environment. You may be aspiring to be a good student in having academic degrees, or aspiring to go for next level of academia, or you wanted to enter a pharmaceutical industry, which is relevant to us, today's students. They will always need to have a good communication of presenting themselves very well in front of the either an interviewer. Today's interview is not just an interview of providing a job opportunity for the right aspirants, but also the candidate has to enable himself whether what he's up to, what he has learned through all his academic years, it is put to use in the industry. So that's where the communication skills comes in importance here. So it's all the abilities to use giving and receiving different kinds of information. The information can be a casual confirmation, a casual conversation, or information is what you write in your examination on an answer paper, okay, for the questions that is given to you, or when you are verbalizing yourself in front of somebody and talking about yourself. So it could be any kind of information. It could be information that is texted through chat. an information that is, written down on an email, an information that has been, talked through conversation like a seminar. It is kind of an information. So it's all about something giving and something is receiving. When we say a person will talk internally as well, like, there's a mind that talks internally as well. That's also giving some kind of a language, a kind of a system within system, that people talk to themselves as well, and people talk to others as well. So it basically involves, first the aspect is the listening, then speaking, observing, and etc. And finally, it's not just observing, it is also empathizing along with the speaker who is speaking on the subject, and whether you understood it the way it is to be understood or not. So a storyteller would probably be telling a story wherein certain feelings or emotions have been expressed, where the audience, when you go to a cinema hall or watching a video on your laptop or a system, you always empathize with the dialogue that gets delivered. That means that's called an empathizing. That means you are listening at the same time, observing what's the motion video there. At the same time, you're also internalizing the feelings of the humans that who are interacting one another. Okay, so that's called an empathizing. It unknowingly happens within the human structure when certain verbal communications do happen. Okay, and moving on to the next slides. This is again a basic information which many of us know. It could be like a verbal communication when we speak to each other, and when we speak in a group, when we address an audience, when most of us also happen to participate in cultural activities. When you enact a drama in front of the audience, that is also a type of communication. That means you are doing that so that the people who are either seeing or listening are understanding the communication that is verbalized. Okay, this could be in meetings, letters, memos, interviews, and sometimes video and teleconferencing systems. Okay, and the non-verbal communication is an important aspect. Having verbalized the words, there are certain things in a movement of hands and facial expressions that would rather come in, which will actually denote more often than the verbalized word. Okay, so this is something like an eye-to-eye contact. When you say you go to a restaurant, when you want to give an order, probably you would want to call the waiter to come and ask you what is needed for you, and you have to have eye-to-eye contact and tell them what exactly you needed. Either you go to a shop where you want to purchase an item, you always have an eye-to-eye contact with the sales guy who's sitting across the table and talk. Similarly, when you are attending a college session, wherein the professor, taking the class, always the students have to have an eye-to-eye contact as well. So that's first the symbol of your attention towards the speaker, that you are trying to grab the attention of the speaker, so the speaker is attentive towards you in while communication. It could be sometimes the tone and tenor in which you express certain words, and kind of a body language that is used in a mannerism and kind of a thing. Most must have have sometimes have some students have a habit of mimicking the people, film actors and kind of teachers and kind of. This is also a kind of an observation aspect. And once you have that, the iota of observation that is coming through, then the actual information starts getting passed from one person to other person. It could be various levels. Hence, a non-verbal communication is an important element which will actually impart the effectiveness of communications. Going to the next slide. Again, it is again a simple process. Hope it is visible to the screen. There is a speaker who is sending the information here. There is also a receiver who is also receiving that information, either through ears, either through watching a video or kind of an aspect. And there is a message that is given across between. A cinema dialogue is a message that is given across. A politician speaking on the public ground is enabling a message to the audience there. And there is something called a encoding of that information in words through verbal and non-verbal. A message is given that is decoded and received by the receiver, who's an audience, who's listening to it and watching through it. They could be, that's the way the speaker and the audience are connected to each other. The messages are being passed. So there is also a noise in between that happens here. When I say the noise, it could be an environmental factor. There would be people who would be talking all along, maybe disturbing the channel of communication. If one is speaking now in today's session, I was unable to speak. If there are any other voices or the noise that comes through, it is disabled, so that you are able to clearly listen to what I'm speaking. So that's the noise level is disabled. If the noise level is enabled, what happens is there's a lot of ruckus that happens because everybody is speaking or attending to moving a gadget here, or a fan moving all in here. It also have an impact on the transmission medium of communications here. So having that is disabled, the noise is disabled, that you are able to clearly listen to what I'm saying. And of course, once the sender gives the information, it comes to the receiver, and he wants to communicate it back to the sender. There is also a feedback session. Now, there are a couple of people who want to wanted to chat with the programmer on the questions that someone is typing. Okay, that is a feedback session. Maybe towards the end of today's session, probably maybe another 30-40 minutes, you also have a time period where you have time to ask questions. That's called a feedback session. Okay, so a sender sends out the message with the encoding in terms of either a language or a body language as well, and it is decoded by the receiver. In the absence of a noise, it goes back as a feedback to the receiver. It comes back to sender. So hope this process of communication looks very simple, but it happens in a fraction of a second, unknowingly or knowingly. Okay, so one has to be aware and observe these patterns to understand this communication process. Moving on to the next slide. Now, in today's world, today we see that we are talking to people in US, talking to people in Japan, Korea, talking to people in Germany, and etc. So the world is, in fact, the communications have enabled the world to talk to each other in various fronts. When I say various fronts, it is through mobile systems or through video chats or video calls or webinars and telecons. So when we are speaking, the important aspect is that the culture in which we are grown will actually dictate the accent, the tone and tenor in which we talk. Correct? So an American who's sitting in America, the speed of language could be different. A guy who's sitting in Japan, totally diagrammatically opposite. They are very slow communicators because English is not their the mother tongue or widely spoken in Japan or Korea. So what happens is that a guy who's sitting in UK, United Kingdom, that is England, and the guy who's sitting in US, a guy who's sitting in Germany. Here, the guys who's sitting in China or Korea, Asian Pacific countries, there is a wide disconnect in terms of the way they understand the language. Correct. So when we are speaking, we should know whom we are speaking to first. That's the audience. You have to clearly understand their psychology. What is the culture in which they are bringing in? Okay. Now, suppose we are talking to a guy in US. Obviously, there is a time zone difference as well. So we have to adjust our time zones as well when we are speaking. So a guy who's sitting in Australia and a guy sitting in America, the accents are different. Similarly, the guy who's sitting in Japan, the accents are totally different. So their cultural upbringing also different. Okay, an American may handshake today, whereas if you go to Japan, there is a different custom in which one greets other. So their cultural denominations are different. Cultural aspects in which one individual is brought up in is different. Hence, we have to adapt ourselves, understand the way they communicate, understand their culture if you want to interact with such kind of people. This is an example which I have just said this because we have global presence today, and our projects are not just limited to the where we are currently focused, where we are ideally sitting and doing it. Correct. So we'll have to interact with the people who are across US domain, who are in UK domain, or Japanese domain, where the time zones are different, where we adjust ourselves to their way of communication. If it comes to Asia Pacific region, the way we communicate is bit slower than what we even speak now. Similarly, when we are talking into Western countries, the speed of the way they communicate is faster. And unless one has a good amount of listening skills, it's very difficult to decipher what they're speaking. So the first aspect, which is listening skills, is an important element when we are dealing with cross-cultural population. Maybe a guy, when you're talking to a North Indian, probably that could be a different way because the way they express, the way they think, it could be different, even between the regions that I'm talking about it. Correct. You must have noticed this in your daily practice as well. Correct. So that talks about the cross-cultural communications. That is, if you really wanted to understand the cross-cultural communication, really we need to understand the way each individual of that region speaks. So how to cultivate this communication aspect, listening skills more often than not. So in social media, and my simple suggestion or the advice to the budding students who wanted to enter into the arena of job seeking, they should first start understanding how the media persons speak in debates, how a news reader talks while delivering the news message to the on the TV screens. Okay. And certain things, if you want to really understand the tone and tenor, you have to watch certain couple of good movies. If you really want to master English language, let's say that some kind of English movies which has very good fluency, either it is England based or UK, US based kind of where dialogue oriented, expression oriented kind of thing. If you are consciously practicing yourself and listening to these things, this kind of cross-cultural communication gets automatically registered in your the domain of your psychology. So this is the listening skills, an important thing. Why I say that this cannot be taught. Basically, it should always be observed. And when I say that observation happens for a small child when he's born, because the immediate environment, the father speaking, mother speaking, and grandfather is speaking, grandmother is speaking, they clearly understand whose tone in which it is somebody is talking. By just closing their eyes, they can even tell today that who is speaking. Either the father is speaking, a brother is speaking, or a sister is speaking, because it gets registered. Each person has a tone and tenor in which he speaks that gets into your the brain nerves, and that gets registered as an image. More often than not, first the image comes into first picture, and then comes your language, the second system. Correct? So more often than not, we as a small kids started observing, taking the images first, then naming these images against the word. Correct? If you clearly, slowly observe, the pattern of learning, listening and learning happens. What it is simply said in our Hindu mythology as Mukhe Mukhe Saraswati. That means the language starts moving from one person to other through a system called listening. That's what it is, Mukhe Mukhe Saraswati. That means you start listening, then start imbibing the knowledge, and then it goes. That more often than not in our classrooms, there is a teaching that practice that gets into a system where you start listening to the teacher or the professor, then you start internalizing the subject matter into it. Okay, so important aspect in cross-cultural communication is also again in the same aspect of listening. So most of our communication happens through listening program, and 60 to 70% of our communications actually happens through listening than speaking. Correct. So let's move on next slide. The purpose of this communication is to speak clearly and without any unambiguous terms. That means there should be a clarity of the thought, clarity of speech, kind of thing, so that one can clearly understand. The sender sends the information and receives the information. That means it is a way we convey your thoughts or messages or ideas to other person. Okay, and this should happen without any kind of a distortion, or there should not be any kind of a noise level in the system. At the same time, there should not be any communication breakdown. More often than not, the productivity in most of the organization, whether it is called pharmaceutical or any other industry, the more often than not, projects get derailed or projects gets delayed just because there is a communication breakdown between the people who are working within the team across the team. Okay, when you go to a shop or a mall, when you wanted to talk and wanted to talk and negotiate on a price of the product, if there is a communication breakdown between the salesperson and yourself, then the sale does not happen. Neither you can buy a goods there. Correct. So that's as simple as it is. So it's important that we should have a clear, unambiguous terms. You speak and convey your ideas and thoughts, and without any kind of a distortion, then without any communication break, it becomes more understandable and understood by the listener. So now coming back to these few of the barriers, like there could be a language barrier, a guy who's professor, in an Oxford University, maybe using a high flowing, flowery language, words which we don't know. This is called a use of jargon. Let's say you are a pharmacist. If you go to an IT expert talking about coding or decoding, you don't understand because it's different programming there. If the same guy goes, talks about medicine, he may not understand what is the medicine that he's talking about it, because the jargon is different. Each profession has a different jargon. Like, the medical fraternity has a different jargon. Similarly, the humanities has a different jargon. And, the way the media people talk is a different, way they express. So each profession has a different etiquettes in which they communicate to each other, right? Apart from this, there are certain aspects like, emotional barriers when we say, correct? In certain, as I said, cross-cultural communication, which is, sometimes in our culture, we don't talk about, things which are, dangerous to the kids, correct? This is called social system or a taboo in our, culture. But it may be outspokenly spoken in Western world. That's the cultural difference here. Okay. Similarly, emotional barriers. A father is speaking to the son. A mother is speaking to the, child, or a lover speaking to another. Okay. So emotional barriers, just get connected to each other. Or a hero, conveying a message to heroine is an emotional barrier kind of a thing. Okay. There could be sometimes where everybody is not brought up in the similar culture. Or the training in which the upbringing happens, either to the family or to the society, could be different. Hence, there are emotional barriers that vary from one person to other person here. So that's where, there are certain limits in which one should speak. Let me tell you an example. We deliberately hire in our, industry domain, at least 20 to 30% of the female candidates in all the departments. What is the purpose? What happens when all men are together? They talk all the things that are, from politics to everything. What happens? And the work productivity goes down. When we also have the, female colleagues in the same department working, and everybody minds their own business. This is one of the emotional encashment that happens in the industry, where we deliberately put all, in a team. When we are developing a team, we always have people from a different regions. We all have people from different class. We'll have from the different sex as well. The reason being that they have to gel as a team, so that their communication skills across. Let's say that I put into speaking the entire team, we speak in Telugu, let's say example. Then you will not be able, you will always be speaking in Telugu there. If I were to put one guy from North India, Punjabi there, another member from Bengali, and another guy is coming and joining in your team from the Tamil Nadu, obviously you'll be finding a medium to express yourself. There could be a common medium, could be Hindi or English, where you will communicate, or you are either forced to communicate in that direction. Correct. So that is the where it is an important element for all of us to have that emotional bonding, and emotional barrier is created so that everybody performs at their peak of their productivity as well. This is the secret of the team forming as well in our this is part of our communication that gets into the psychology of the organizations. So, and barriers of communication, a professor coming to the college and the students don't show any interest in listening to the seminar or a webinar or a direct class, then the teacher also loses the interest. So always an attention have to be broadened. A teacher has to enthuse, or a professor has to give a kind of a storytelling that the students are attracted towards what he's speaking about. So if somebody is not able to elicit that kind of an interest, the seminar or a class would be boring as well. So lacking of an attention or an interest or a distraction, there could be a lot of noise around. And if I were to speak and enable the noise level here, then it will be disturbing turn for me as well. So I will not be able to speak properly, as well. Correct. And there is also another level of barrier of communication. It's called a perceptual view. Okay. When I say the perception basically is the way how you react or how you understand a topic or a subject. This happens with the domain knowledge one has in that field. Okay. Let's say an IT guy would be talking about a treatment of a COVID today scenario. Okay. He may be saying there's no drug available in the world today to treat COVID. Yes, there could be a chance, because he's not aware of the developments happening in the pharmaceutical field to discover a drug which can treat COVID. Correct. So he's not having a perception of pharmaceutical industry. Hence, he says that there's no drug is available. If I were to be, if we were to ask the same question, we will say that there are a host of drugs where the clinical trials have been been conducted. Sooner or later, we'll have a vaccination as well available for the public to take care of the COVID situation. Correct. So that the data in which the guy who is responding to the question, the perception varies. Hence, a layman perception could be different, or an expert or a professional perception could be different. So I hope you understand what I basically meant perception and the viewpoint is concerned. More often than not, you see in almost political debates, X party and Y party, their perceptions are different. The viewpoints are different. Correct. So hence, they talk different subjects. The ruling party would always say that we have done all the best, we have done the best in the world that nobody has done till so far. But the opposition may say it is totally utter rubbish. So hence the perceptions differ. Correct. So similarly, there are certain people are physically challenged or mentally challenged people. Probably they may not be having up to the mark in terms of the hearing capacities or understanding or speech difficulties. So in Western world, it is well recognized that mentally challenged or a physically challenged guy is given always an advantageous position as compared to our Eastern world, against the cultural difference between the Western and the Eastern world. Correct. So a guy who has got a hearing problems, there are special schools that are there to teach those kind of students, and society respects and give them a chance to learn and improve in their life. Some people may have speech difficulties, all may not be speaking the language. It is with all high-fly words and vocabulary there, but a simple message which could be in their own mother tongue can also be spoken as well. It's not always that everybody has to speak in a foreign language. If you are comfortable in speaking your mother tongue, please tell the other person that you are comfortable in speaking your mother tongue. If the other person also knows your mother tongue, it's easy to communicate. Okay, more often than not, when people join the industry, this behavior comes out. Okay, I have given the flip-flop side of both the things. In a team, when we select team members, we deliberately put different people from different regions so that they gel together, communicate each other, develop their communication skills. Hence, they come out successfully and we give them the maximum productivity. So then, the barriers of communication, which I just have to not spend much time on this slide, the physical barriers and non-verbal communications. And there could be language differences between North, South, Western, Eastern. I already touched upon this aspect. Okay. And there's also the bias system that would exist. Expectations are high. An employee is waiting for increment. Expectations are high. The management expectations are different. Hence, the difference of expectations also bring in a kind of a discord between the employee and employer as well, or between a father and a mother, okay, and your brother and a sister. So this kind of expectations also infuse individuals' psychology as well and perceptions. Hence, there could be a barrier in communications. Correct. And of course, as I mentioned, cultural differences, in different cultures, if I were to start a big mall in India, a big bazaar was a concept developed. Whereas if you go to the Western world, there are only 100 people in the mall. The mall is around 10 lakh square units, where you hardly see people there. Where if I give you the same scenario in India and go ask the people to go and buy goods, they are hesitant because they are not used to having so much of space all around. They always see a person next to juggling here and there and wanted to purchase. That's how the concept of Big Bazaar was a click. There were also certain malls that were developed earlier and launched in India, but were not successful. Like Walmart was tried, it was successful because the psychology of the India is different. The cultural differences are different. We always prefer to go in a mob and go and make the purchases. More often than not, if you go on to buy a vegetable, vendor, there are, at least 10, 15 people all around, bargaining, and you all wanted to be part of it and, take it. That's a cultural difference that I'm talking about it. Okay. So hence the Big Bazaar concept had been really click. Then aftermath, you see a lot of other supermarkets have come in, chains have come into the picture. But Walmart, that wanted to enter in the early 90s, that 2000, was a big failure. The reason is that it's a cultural difference. Each person there, the space is given for each person, and they love to have more space compared to Western to the Eastern world. Hence, the concept differ. Hope you understand with examples that I'm giving you in a real time scenario. Now, the most important and sought after aspect of our discussion is like you complete your education, wanted to get into either an academia or even to the industry. Obviously, you would be looking for and would be asked to submit your resume or a curriculum vitae, where you will have to narrate what you have done so far. People will see that, okay, and they are called for an interview. Then, because it's not a practical experience that every one of us undergoing an interview face to face, it becomes more difficult for a first timer who would be attending the interview. What kind of questions he'll be will be panicked within. Correct. So few of the tips for those aspiring to join the industry or academia, if they are wanted to attend an interview, they should know what kind of questions been asked. So there could be an important thing that we rehearse such kind of things as well in our domain or in a college scenario, wherein certain questions have been asked and you are prepared to answer those questions, so that the fear factor or the fear psychology when you're attending an interview, it gets normalized. More often than not, a candidate who's attending the interview has a domain knowledge or expertise in everything, but during that period of 15 minutes, if you're not able to effectively communicate yourself about yourself, your persona, your attitude, your likings or dislikings, or domain knowledge, or a case studies, if you're not able to explain properly, you will lose an opportunity of getting that job. Correct or not? So the first important thing when you attend an interview, I'll spend a couple of minutes on this slide because this is an important thing for most of the budding students who want to join the industry. The first question that would come across is that when you just enter the the cabin where the interviewer is sitting, and you obviously enter the cabin, you have to greet the interviewer and talk about yourself. You got to manage yourself and say XYZ, masters in pharmaceutics from Hindu College of Pharmacy, so and so kind of a thing. Okay, and this is your area of expertise. That is what it's tell about yourself. When you talk about yourself, you talk about your academic credentials, you talk about your family upbringing, you talk about what are your aspirations, long-term aspirations in next 3 years, 5 years, what you want to achieve, next 10 years, what you want to achieve. So there are a few questions that have been asked. If one gets prepared for such kind of questions, then it is easy to handle such questions. Let's say you're appearing for a sales representative job, correct? So one of the tip is that apart from being introduced and kind of a thing, the first question that would come in is that, can you sell this pen to me? This is the first question that would come in, correct? So this is anticipated questions. A guy who's not prepared enough would probably, scream at yourself inside, may not be outside, but at least he doesn't know how to respond, correct? I think it happened to most of us when we started entering the industry, correct? Then the question would come in that in academia, what is the greatest challenge that you faced? Or it could be a family problem that you have faced and you have overcome it. Tell that narration very clearly, how you are able to overcome that, okay? And the topical simple question that would come in is that, like, why do you want to take up this job? The interviewer would be obviously interested to know, is he capable, or is there a need for the aspirant to join the industry, whether there's a real need for him. Is the need is for the financial aspect of it? Is a need for having a professional satisfaction, or a personal growth, or a career-oriented person? So these are things that would be asked to the aspirant. Then you got to prepare yourself with certain question answers with clarity of mind. Okay. Then certain things like then what are your interests, what are your aspirations? Usually we pick up, if I were to interview a couple of guys, freshers into the system, could be a formulator, could be an analyst, could be a sales representative, or a business development guy, or on the quality systems, okay, quality control or quality assurance. Apart from domain knowledge, we are more likely to pick up the guy who are more extrovert, okay, for the sales job or a BD job. Because when we are talking about a sales job, so it happens that more often than not, you got to interact with so many people all around. You got to go and meet an unknown client, or talk to the unknown client over the phone, whom you have not seen so far, correct? Unless a personality of the person is extrovert, it is very difficult. If I were to hire a guy who want to do a lab experiment, I can choose between an extrovert and introvert. I would rather prefer an introvert who minds his own business, because he's given an experiment to do. He'll just go and perform the experiment, take out the data, record it, and submit it. So there are personalities, happens, for each individual, whether one is, introvert or an extrovert. Some job profiles would suit for introverts, some certain job profiles would suit for extroverts. And there are also a mix of people having flavor of both introverts and extroverts as well. So hence, those guys, they can fit in everywhere. So they'll have to be very clear in choosing what they want. Okay, so these are a few questions that would come in for a first-time interviewer. Now, of course, even an experienced or a seasoned guy like 20 years of experience in industry like me, when I were to deliver a seminar or anything, I got to prepare myself for it. Without preparation, it cannot happen. So even for somebody who is budding or to get into the industry, have to prepare himself or herself while attending these interviews. So the first aspect is that when you're allowed to speak, you speak out very clearly. Otherwise, you listen to the guys. That's called observation. Observation is a fundamental aspect of the first communication. Once you are observing the environment around you, who are all sitting, what is their domain knowledge, what is their experience. They will talk about the organization they belong to, what is organization is capable. First, just have to listen to the introduction part of it when speaking, when you're attending an interview. At the same time, you got to give respect and take respect as well. You got to greet others politely. Even in a team settings, you cannot harshly treat the colleague the way you want it. There is a protocol and decorum in the HR systems. If somebody is rudely behaving, even if you are a manager, you have every right to complain to the HR systems there. Human resource department would be there. You can always lodge your complaint that my superior is behaving unnaturally and kind of. There are also grievance systems that are available in the industry that would address. So why I say this is that give respect and take respect. The way you treat your people or the people whom we are interacting, they also behave the similar way. And whenever you're speaking, you got to always have confidence in what you are speaking about. Okay. And let's say that if you are in a pharmaceutical guy, you cannot be talking about that I know everything in the chemistry. So you should only talk about the subject matter in which you are expert into it. You could only just talk about the one that shows the confidence of the person. Okay. Then whatever you speak, I give you 10 hours of examination time for you to write answers. You will definitely write. Why they concise that to 2 or 3 hours? Because there's a brevity. There's a time in which one has to complete this assessment. Correct. So whatever you talk or write or record has to have very concise or within the time it has to be done. Similarly, when you are in a group setting or a team settings, you got to empathize and allow the other people to speak. At the same time, when you listen to them, there is an empathy or bonding that happens between the sender and the receiver. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. Then the communication barriers would come in, and there's a communication breakdown that happens. And there is also a non-verbal communication that happens, which says that in the chat, you should raise your hand and say that I have a question. Instead of saying that I have a question, you can just say raise your hand. That's a non-verbal communication when you're seeing that. That means the speaker is able to understand that you wanted to speak. Then he'll pause for a minute and give you a chance to speak. That is simple non-verbal communication. Correct? A child wants to communicate to mother. There are different ways, which we children, they behave in homes, in our daily homes. There is totally, they don't speak, but it's just a simple non-verbal communication. They communicate to the other. So it's an important element in our communications as well. Now, coming back to our communication channels in the industry, managerial communication, what we talk about it. It is important that when you're entering in the industry, somebody maybe, over a period of time is designated to become a manager. Then that means you're building a team. That means there are people, 3 or 4 or 10 people are working under you as well. And, it is important that we have interpersonal communications. Likewise, you have in the college, for example, I have also passed with the college sector. So there are certain small groups if you can find in the classroom. They're comfortable in exchanging their communication with 2 or 3 people as a group, or 4 or 5 people of the group. Correct. there's something called interpersonal communication happens because they gel each other, they empathize each other, hence they understand each other. There is also a verbal and non-verbal messages that goes across between these two people, then becomes interpersonal communications. So our initial, we always gel with people whom we are comfortable with, more often than not. Correct or not? So in those scenarios, what happens is that when you're concising yourself to the small group, you'll not be able to evolve beyond the group. So it is important that across a group also you should be able to communicate effectively. That's what Gottberg talks about interpersonal communication. The people, information change, feelings, it could be verbal or non-verbal. Suppose a guy who's gone into the next level of communication systems, organizational communication happens. That means when you say in organization, let's say an example of a college setting. So there is a department, pharmaceutics, pharmacology, analysis, and similarly humanities, let's say. Each department has its own, the professor sitting over there. Each department has its own members who are, accruing to that particular department, correct? So within that department, there are certain communications that would happen. And across the department, like between pharmaceutics and pharmacology, there could be some communication that would happen. And all these departments put together would be coming under the banner of a vice principal or a principal or a kind of a registrar, has a different set of communications as well. So when I'm talking about this as a college setting, it's easy to understand for the students. Similarly, in the industry, what happens is that there's a research and development department. There is a quality control department, analytical research development department. There is a quality assurance department. There is a regulatory department as well. And there is a marketing or a business development department. So within these departments, there are within teams again. Okay, a guy who's at a general manager level has a team of managers, 2 or 3 reporting to him. Each manager have 3 or 4 people under him working. Okay, so within the group they communicate to each other. Across the group, within the department they communicate to each other. Across the departments, they communicate to each other, and everybody is responsible for managerial communications. So it's an important thing that in the organizational communication happens through interpersonal departments, interpersonal communications, interdepartmental communications, and as organizational communications. Correct. So we understand why this is an important element in an organization setting. Similarly, when I come to organization settings, there is some news the management want to communicate to employees one-on-one. There is also an annual report meeting that happens, or there could be a college seminar that happens where the message from the secretary or the principal would come in, and they would be information is given on to all the participants to attend a seminar or a webinar or attend a cultural festival in the college. That means there's also a communication channel that gets established, a ladder of communication also established in the organizational hierarchy as well. This is what I'm talking about it. So if one wants to be a manager and a leader, there's a big debate in what is called as a managerial aspect effectiveness and a leadership effectiveness. In today's world, when the disruptive technologies are widespread, it is a leadership role that takes over the managerial role. Manager is always work oriented towards end of delivering certain aspect or a task that is given to the team. Now a leader has to not just perform the task that is given to him, have to provide enthusiasm within the team members, okay, increase the productivity, and also impart the next level career guidance to his own fellow mates who are in that. And such kind of a behavior is always appreciated in the organization. There are only few leaders would exist in the organization as compared to host of managers in organizations. So an important a separate chapter dedicated to managerial behavior and a leadership behavior that happens in the industry setting, or even in academia as well. So that's a separate topic. We'll separately spend time if time permits later. So that is also a communication channel. The guy who has got a good amount of communication with leadership skills, take everybody together along with him and help the team members to perform very well, always be recognized as a leader. And he'll always succeed in his life wherever he goes. Hence, it is important. All the leaders in the world have very good communication skills. Hence, only they are able to get to the top of the pyramid. Otherwise, it is impossible. So it is important, how important, like a guy who's the prime minister of the country or a president of the country, unless there's a communication skills, he'll not reach the top. Whether it is industry or academia, wherever you talk about it, all about communication today. Now, how you now you understand like how important is the realization with respect to communication skills one should have. Now, coming back to the pharma industry again, now in today's world, we are working with multicultural projects, multicultural environment. There is a sponsor who sponsors the project. There is a partner who actually execute the project. There is a CRO which actually implements the project here. So the guy who's sitting in US would have been a sponsor. A partner must be sitting in Japan, and you are in India working in CRO. It could be a chance. Unless you have communication skills, it is very difficult to connect with all of them and deliver the project. Is it or not? It's not no more sitting there, I'm just, happily, doing everything in my cabin and sitting in my college and doing it. No, those days have gone now. Now today's world is, multicultural, multi-ethnic. And for all this, to connect these dots, there is something department called project management also evolved in the last 2 decades, which I talked about, project management institute body, which a project manager guy who's got very good communication skills, able to take the teams along with it and talk to the sponsor, ensure the partner is happy and deliver the goods from the CRO. Okay, you understand the importance of project management here. The reason being that they are very good communicators. They take the team along and deliver the goods in the defined timelines. So just a few things. Now what we have emphasized more on speaking and listening abilities, the core and fundamental importance, which I would writing skills, an important element in today's communications. In industry, what is written is only considered is authentic. I repeat, what is written and what is recorded is only considered as authentic. What is spoken, what is heard is not authentic in pharmaceutical industry. Simple. An experiment is done, it is unless it is recorded and it is reported in the lab reports, it is only considered as completed or done. Otherwise, it is not done. Similarly, if a quality control or quality assurance, there is standard operating procedures that are available. Quality manuals that are available. There are prescribed standards in which we have to follow certain rules and regulations while doing an experiment or reporting a result. It's all come back to the bottom of it, which is called a writing skills. Unless, apart from communicating, speaking and listening, unless a guy who is good at writing or recording, if a scientist have to be successful, he has to record everything, whatever the observation that he undergoes, and then while making an experiment or executing an experiment. Similarly, when you wanted to communicate the results, positive, negative, or kind of a thing, there is something called an email communication that happens. Today in virtual world, somebody sitting in one corner, another one is guy sitting in another corner. How do you communicate? Everything is not physically possible to come and meet one-on-one, face-to-face, and talk about your experience or experiment or kind of a thing. No, it doesn't happen that way. There is a communication channel that is established, either through WhatsApp groups, either through email systems. Well, one has to communicate. So it is important not just only verbalizing or kind of thing, while writing is an important element too. So when we are writing an email, how to write the email body? Maybe that more often than not, we may be happily writing the love letters. Yeah, but that's a way of communication as well. But how to write an email communication, that's also a different domain. It is a separate training program that's imparted to the guys who are entering the industry. How to write email communications, what to write, what should be the subject line, how to describe an event or an experiment. This has all been taught. It is not taught initially. We usually pick up from the existing what they write in their communication channels, then pick up those guys who are very poor in email writing, then take them separately and coach them and train them how to write the emails. Certain times I have learned my email writings, observing my boss writing the emails, reading through hundreds and thousands of emails. I have learned it over a period of time. So nobody is born perfect. One has to make a conscious effort in writing skills and understanding what is written and how to write. And similarly, there are technical meetings that happens between the scientific teams, and there are also management teams where the project updates or reports have been given. There is also minutes of the meeting that gets recorded by the project manager. There is a system in which one has to write the minutes. When I say the minutes of the meeting, what is the subject that has been talked about, what is the action point that is derived, who is responsible for that action point, what are the timelines that are defined and agreed upon to complete the task. This constitute the minutes of the meeting. When it comes to industrial practices, you do a lab experiment that has to come to a multi-tonnage, production in the production or manufacturing area. There are certain manufacturing batch records have to be written. There are product specifications that have to be written, and method of analysis that have to be written. So method of analysis it will be usually written by the analyst. Product specifications are usually written by the formulator, where batch manufacturing records are done by the production team. That means, again, within the team, you have to coordinate with various departments to come out and make and execute one batch. Correct? Similarly, when you're talking about somebody who wants to get into the medical writing profession, or a PharmD course, or kind of people who wanted to join, then there is also medical writing jargon that is taught to the students, how to write the medical writing. Adverse drug reports, there is also a template that is clearly written when you go into hospital settings, how to write adverse drug reactions. ADRs, what we basically call it. Apart from this, there is also regulatory guidelines that are published in today's world. Specifically, when we are talking about pharmaceutical systems, a drug, it is simple definition, either it is taken, either it can kill or cure the patient. Unless an appropriate dose of the medicine is given to the patient, it will heal the patient or cure the patient. If not, if it is overdose, what happens? It kills the patient altogether. Hence, there are certain guidelines that are prescribed how to manufacture the, develop the medicines, how to manufacture it, what are some criteria that are written. The product should have a certain stability and everything. It's all governed by regulatory guidelines like ICH and current good manufacturing practices, which analytical testing, good laboratory practices as well. Okay, and of course, when all these factors are written down in a document, there are certain checklists or correspondence that happens to file these drug master files in respective regions if you are working in a regulatory environment. There is a formulation dossiers that are prepared, and there are some marketing approvals that are to be prepared. Everything is written down very clearly in the pharmaceutical industry. It is not spoken, it is not understood. It has to be explicitly written in a document. It has to be presented to the authorities for review and approval. And they'll come for the inspection. When they come for the inspection, they will take a couple of guys from the quality control department. They may ask a couple of guys to come from the quality assurance department, production and formulation. They will interview them whether they have done this experiment, what was the, how they will also assess the how the people in the organization are effectively able to do this kind of activities as per the regulatory prescribed norms. So this is an important element as well. Not just an interview getting in the industry. Sometimes a guy has to face a regulator who's coming from US, who's coming from Japan, who's coming from Korea, who's coming from Germany to face. They will go to the documents, they'll ask you questions. You got to communicate that whatever is appropriate, whatever is done has to be explicitly explained. That is also a communication skill. So in the organization, there's also training that gets important. Those who are going to face, usually the quality control department guys, regulatory department guys, and formulation or analytical research department guys would be called in and given a training, what to talk, how to present the data. Okay. This is how it happens. Similarly, the most often than not in the medicine that are given to us is a prescription, packaging inserts and patient information leaflets. More often it is more relevant in the Western world, where everything is written, what is drug and why, how it is acting, method of action, and everything is clearly written. There's a written document there. Somebody has to proofread the document as well. And they will also, important to have a reading, writing, and speaking and listening skills. Everything is important. So you understand how important is the communication aspect in the pharmaceutical industry, because it is said that what is written is only acknowledged as what is done. Similarly, some business team people like business development goes, marketing, sales guys would be attending in trade shows. When they'll have to put up a stall, then they'll have to make all arrangements. Certain trade shows that I've mentioned here, which happens worldwide, and these business development teams goes and meet and interact with clients and to get projects. So for that, also an important thing is that how your body language, the cultural behavior, your communication, your when I say speaking ability, listening ability, documentation ability is an important element for those guys who wanted to aspire to get into business development domain. Next slide, which I just briefly touched this. May I ask what's the time left? How much time is left for us to conclude? Yeah, I think we're just 11 crossing 11:10 right now. Probably I'll quickly summarize the remaining parts of it. Corporate media communication, just slide is self-speaking, and the news is to be imparted to the the outside world. Like Dr. Reddy's want to communicate, or ZS Kerala wants to communicate. There are corporate media communication. There's a separate cell that exists in most of the organization. It deals with the stock market, deals with the investors, deals with the outside world. So they have a certain protocol, who has to speak, what to speak, and how to speak. That's one important element in the corporate communications. Within the organizational, I'm just presented you a couple of slides. HR department want to communicate how many employees are there, how many appraisals are there, what is the attrition rate. So this is how they make all the beautiful pie diagrams and present to the management. And the business metric, the guy who's in the business development has to look at the guys who are sitting in the finance system. What is the cash flow? What is the productivity, and what is the turnover of the company? And whether the goods are delivered to the customer, is the customer satisfaction? What is the final net income that bottom line the organization is making? That means again that somebody has to make all these data and present to the management. Hence, important is the communication here. Briefly, I touch upon Alcoa principle. Given the time paucity, I'll just spend 5 minutes talking about it. This is an important subject in the pharmaceutical industry today. That is called data integrity. Is considered as first and the foremost requirement in the pharmaceutical system to ensure medicines are of the required quality, meeting the regulatory standards, have to be delivered. It simply says a document which should be attributable. I'll just go to next slide. Attributable is clearly seen the source data and who has developed this data. Should be legible, that means cleanly written. It should be recorded with the time and date on which date it is done. And we have to see is the data is original or not? Is it true copy or master copy? What is the accuracy of the data that has been then talked about it? Whether the data I'm talking about is a completeness of the entire report or not, and the data are consistent or not, and the data have to be archived and endured over a period of time, recorded and enduring in a media. We have IT systems to record all the data and observations. Those are also subject for audit. And whenever there's a regulator comes in or a quality department wants to audit the facility, it should be readily available as well. So this is an important slide for those who are budding into pharmaceutical industries to understand this Alcoa principle, which talks about attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate data, which should be complete, consistent, enduring, and available whenever it is to be retrieved. A roadmap, how a development happens to commercialization, are presented in this slide. Self-explanatory. These are the few terms that are regularly used in the pharmaceutical domain. Okay. And when you're talking about final is that archival systems here, software data management system comes into place. There is a method that is developed by the lab. Data gets generated. It has to be processed and recorded in a central on a laptop or a computer where it is written. That gets to automation. There is a central storage capacity that is generated by the organization. And data is accurate or not, and result the data. This all gets reposited in the central storage area. At any point of time, any retrieval is required, it comes on picture, for regulators and politician department. So it is something about the scientific data management systems, like solution to instrument, generate the data, control our access and the audit trails in the system have to be clearly written. Apart from the communication, some people may think it's only a laboratory notebook. No, it's not just about a notebook or a physical paper. A data that gets recorded electronically is also an information that is also a communication channel, correct? So those have to be controlled as well. Audit trail, control over generated process data, automatic data revision has to happen. It should get stored, either HPLC systems or GC systems gets recorded here, goes to a central warehouse where it gets recorded. Whenever it is required, it gets retrieved and presented to the regulators and auditors. So I think this talks briefly about the communication, importance of communications in the pharmaceutical industry, not just the listening or speaking. In the pharmaceutical industry, more emphasis is given to documentation practice, which is actually either handwritten or electronically written documents. So I think it has given you an overview of communications and its importance in the pharmaceutical industry. Budding aspirants and the students wants to get into the industry or academia, how to inculcate and develop the communication skills. I hope this would have given you some iota of knowledge about the importance of communication. Hope the students will take advantage of the session. And now I would request the admin to throw open this webinar for question answer session for a brief period.
Hello, Vijay Bhaskar sir.
I think we've got to enable him to speak.
Sir, Vijay Bhaskar sir. Please unmute your mic.
Should I unmute my mic?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Yeah. Is it audible, sir?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah. Yeah, just a minute. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Radhakrishnan, sir, you have given an elaborate description on communication skills and the opportunities and the placements and the importance of communication skills in pharma industry. And now the session is, it is time to take for the question hour. So the students or the participants are asking a few questions. Just I want to highlight a few questions. So the first question is, what is the significance of cross-cultural communication in modern era? Is cross-cultural communication is based only on language? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Sir.
Thanks for that question, and it is more relevant in today's environment.
Yeah.
When I said that we have multicultural people who are, as I said, the sponsor can be from Japan, or sponsor can be from Korea, or sponsor of the project can be from US or Europe. So what happens is that when we are in a CRO setting, when I said CDMO means, it's a cramps mode of business, what we call it a CDMO of business. It's called, development and the contract development and manufacturing organizations or the research organizations are wholly dependent on projects that are given to them to execute, okay, with their think tank. Now, in our communication channels, unless you understand the other person what he's speaking, let's say the sponsor is giving you the project and asking you to deliver the project within 3 months time or 1 year time. Unless you understand his language, apart from the written document, when there is also an importance that project sponsor or the would wanted to review the project progress, whether it is in the right direction, whether it is getting completed within the timelines or not. Are we technically able to solve the problems, or should they have to hire somebody to help us in doing the project or not? These all things happens the way you communicate, either through reports or through communication channels. When in a telecons or webinars, when we talk about the project progress with all the dashboards and the project reports, we will have to explain that to our sponsor. Our CRO has to explain that to them, okay, the partner. Unless it is explicitly stated, it is not understood by these sponsors, correct? Somebody is sponsoring you a $100,000 project for you, and he just cannot give away this to you just because you are telling stories that it is completed. You have to show them evidence that it has been completed with all the raw data that is available, that is reports that is written, and it has to be communicated as well. And it's not that when we are talking about science, an experiment is designed, experiment may fail sometimes, but that has to get communicated as well. We always, as an Indian culture, what happens is that we always want to give the good news. We always want to tell that, it is, we are able to successfully overcome the problem. That is, statement. But in the Western culture, it is considered as, a taboo. You are supposed to tell if there is a failure as well. That is the expectations from the sponsor or the partner. Unless you explicitly state that, okay, this is gone wrong, I am going to correct it. Then what are your action plans to correct it is a way we have to communicate. And that is also, unless you communicate with these cross-cultural teams, it is difficult. Suddenly, if I were to take you into the industry and put you, I'll send you an on-site project in Japan, how would you cope up with? Technical domain and knowledge and everything is there. But since the culture is different, you may not be able to cope up in Japan and deliver the project. Same guy who is back to India is able to wonderfully deliver the project. Now, do you see the importance of the cross-cultural communication environment which is playing a role? It's not that candidate is not able to deliver the project. It's got full domain knowledge, but is not able to deliver because the circumstances, the environment, or the culture in which he's asked to perform may not suit him. So hence it is important to have a cross-cultural communication systems comes into play. So teams or managers would carefully select guys who are able to gel in those environments and send them to offsites to perform.
Very good explanation, sir. Thank you very much for this cross-cultural communication in modern era and the significance of language. And the participants are eagerly interested. And one more question, sir, just we want to place before you. This is, you have placed this interviewing skills also. Interviewing skills is very necessary for outgoing students, particularly the college itself. So now the question is related to interviewing skills. Interviewing skills is comes under it's an advanced communication skills, of course, undoubtedly. And what is the role of non-verbal communication? Of course, if non-verbal communication fails at the interviews level, of course, the candidate may not get the job. Of course, just a brief outlook on this non-verbal communication, particularly the role at the interviews level.
Yeah, I think that's a good question as well. You know. When you are going to attend an interview, that means in an office setting, you have called for an interview. Usually it's the case for the budding aspirants. There are a separate chapter in which how a person has to sit in the interview session across the table. Okay, whether you are cross-legged, whether you are casually sitting, or relaxedly sitting in a cinema hall setting, you cannot be sitting like that in an interview session. Correct. That means you are fully prepared. You cannot be just relaxing at your home as if you are attending an interview there. The guy is observing very keenly about your body language, how attentive you are, how cautiously you are answering to the question through body language, how you are sitting, how you are placing your hands on the table, off the table, how you are keeping your nail baiting. You cannot do the nail baiting in front of an interviewer. Simple. Correct. At the same time, you got to have a confidence as well that whatever you speak, the confidence comes to the facial expression. It's not just the language, it's the facial expression talks about the confidence of the person who is attending the interview there. Correct. So these are all the few tips. A guy is sitting, cross-legged is understood one way. A guy is sitting, casually attentive is sitting another way. That's how an interviewer judges the person. And more often than not, apart from the domain knowledge, interviewer is more keen to understand your body language, number one, your behavior pattern, how you are speaking, the tone and tenor in which you are speaking, and the third one is attitude in which you are speaking. Correct. Whether this guy has a good amount of attitude to be given a job so that he can perform very well. So attitude plays an important role. Or the guy who has got, okay, may not be everybody is trained. So what happens is that if enough training is given, probably a person is judged based on ability to learn. That attitude has to be shown. If you don't know, please say no. I don't know, please, can you please tell me the answer for it? I'll be more than happy. That is what your openness to understand and learn. That learning ability is always seen by the interviewer. So important is the body language, how you sit, communicate, and they observe everything. It happens very unknowingly, right? Very casually, unknowingly it happens, but you may not observe yourself. But if I want to show the video of the interview session, you will clearly understand. Maybe another session, probably sometime when time permits, we will have some anecdotes on interview taking skills, where a casual setting, how it happens. You can clearly, if you are sitting in the frame, you cannot observe yourself. But if I were to give you a video kind of a thing, it is very easy and you can see yourself. Then what mistakes during the interview with respect to body language one undergoes, and sometimes a guy can exceedingly perform very well just because he's got a good body language and attitude. People are not really looking at domain knowledge. They're only looking at your behavior, attitude, ability to learn and to work in teams. Hope this answers this question.
Madam. Hello. Madam.
Any next question, if any?
Yeah, just wait a minute, sir. Just 1 minute, sir. Sir, thank you very much, sir, for an elaborate explanation regarding the interviewing skills, which is considered an advanced communication skills. and the significance of non-verbal communication. So now the question hour is over, sir. And before going with vote of thanks, sir, just OST, sir, that Sitaram sir wanted to share the feelings in office on duty. This Sitaram sir wanted to share his opinion.
One simple 1 minute I'll take here.
Yeah,
there was one question asked about is there any book or something where you can understand the communication skills, interview skills, and kind of thing. One simple thing I can tell the students, HR questions 2020. It's an app that is available today, and you can download the app in the Google kind of a thing, and you can just go through the questions and the answers very well. You can rehearse yourself, in settings, so that you are, for a given question, how to answer this. And more often, those people who are attending the visa interviews to go abroad for study, they should do this thoroughly, because you are given 1 or 2 minutes to express yourself. Unless you, within that 2 minutes time, the way you express matters whether you land in higher studies in US or Europe, wherever you want to go for higher studies. So not just an interview, that's a visa interview as an important element as well. So be careful. Those students who are aspiring, do a thorough rehearsal of all the questions and answers and kind of a thing, so that within the 2 or 3 minutes time, you can really impress the interviewer.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Some of the participants are asking the suggested books of the communication skills. So thank you very much for the information. Now I request the Sitaram sir, Office on Duty OSD, PhD, who's Founding Director. I request sir, over to Sitaram sir. Hello. Sitaram garu lera. Sir ki connect chesaru. Sir maatadu.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You please share your
Hello,
feelings.
sir.
Communication.
Very good morning.
Yeah, please.
Morning, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Sir,
Hello.
is it please
Is it
continue.
clear, Bhaskar?
Yes, sir. It's clear. Please continue.
Okay. Okay, sir. Very good morning, all the speakers and viewers. We are very happy to listen to Dr. Radha Sri Krishna Garu, who has explained about the various communication techniques, and he has given special emphasis on pharmaceutical industry. It is very important that the pharmaceutical people have to follow all these communication skills whenever they have an opportunity to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And he has specially referred what are the work atmosphere in the pharmaceutical industry, how to behave with the seniors, with the management, how to prepare the records, and how to face the interviews. So it's very important, sir. And when you are talking, I remembered Lord Sri Krishna's teachings to Arjuna about Gita. So it was so clear. Thank you very much on behalf of our management, our humanities department, our students and faculty. I thank you very much for taking your valuable time and addressing our students and faculty. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vijay Bhaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
So thank you very much, sir, Sitaram sir, for sharing your views. Now it is the time of a vote of thanks. I take the opportunity to propose vote of thanks. A big thank, Mr. Radha Sri Krishna Garu, for delivering a good lecture for the significance of communication skills in pharma industry. And I thank you very much, sir, for an elaborate explanation regarding the communication. And you focus in this communication skills in pharma industry, this written communication, the significance of written communication. And this written communication is purely authentic, and the spoken is non-authentic, that you highlighted in an excellent manner. And thank you very much, sir, for giving a good lecture for the sake of our students. And I thank the management of Hindu College of Pharmacy for their continuous and constant encouragement and support for arranging this webinar. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for the management of Hindu College of Pharmacy. And I thank the principal, Dr. Govindarajan Garu, for his continuous support for arranging this webinar. And I thank the Vice Principal Madam, Dr. Sunita Madam Garu, and the OSP Sitaramana sir, and all HODs and fellow faculty members and technical staff in supporting and successful completion of this webinar. And I thank you one and all. My dear participant, the feedback link is given at the Zoom chat box. Description box of it's the YouTube channel, chat box of your YouTube, Telegram group, and we will send the individual mails also. Thank you all of your kind support of today's session. Now it's time to end the session, and we are closing the session. Thank you.
Before we end, I just have 1 minute word. Can I have the speaker?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I profusely thank the management of Hindu College, principal, vice principal, and secretary, and especially Dr. Vijay Bhaskar Garu for providing me an opportunity to share my thoughts to the budding students of the pharmaceutical industry. Nevertheless, I just wanted to tell you that my father had retired Hindu College teacher, and had a brief stint of 1 year study in Hindu College during the period of 94-95.
Yeah.
And I would admit that I was before I ended up doing pharmaceutical studies, for a brief period I was there with Hindu College, and it's a heartwarming for me to interact with the students of Hindu College, where I have studied for a brief period, to share my industry perspective and thoughts. Hope this is helpful to all those who are aspiring to join industry. Thank you very much.
Sir, so nice to hear you that you are alumni of Hindu College. We feel proud to hear that. I have attended the entire session. It's really amazing. The students need such type of advisors. Unfortunately, the present generation is not able to communicate both in Telugu and as well as English languages also. So I hope this session will be more useful to them, and I request all the participants kindly learn and advise the ideas or tips which are given by the today's speaker. Please try to implement, keep on practice. Everyone will perfect in the communication skills. There is no doubt in that. Unless without practice, nobody becomes expert. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. It's my honor.
Hope we will see you next time at our college in future.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you, Vijay Bhaskar.
Thank you very much, madam, and thank you very much, sir, for a good lecture, sir. Thank you.